According to NFL Network's Mike Garafolo, the New York Jets are doing their homework on Tua Tagovailoa. Could the Dolphin be Gangrene's next quarterback? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Let's go.
This is NY Flight Jets Talk with Connor Long. NY Flight Jets Talk. We're talking Jets, 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 Jets. NY Flight Jets Talk with special guests. NY Flight Jets Talk. Here's your host, Connor Long. Jets, 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 Jets.
What is going on, New York Jet fans? Hello, everyone. Welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk as we come to you guys live right here on this Wednesday evening, March 4th, 2026. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to drop down below, hit that like button, hit subscribe. That is the free way to support us and what we are doing right here on the channel, bringing you guys year-round New York Jets coverage. As always, I am your host, Connor Long. It is great to be with you guys right here on this Wednesday evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Made it to the midway point of the week. Just got 2 days left. Everyone power through. And then the glorious weekend. The weather's getting better for everyone up here. And the Northeast is starting to clear up. Supposed to have a warm weekend. So hope everyone is doing well. And then obviously next week is a monumental week in the football side of things. We're going to get some news back. Free agency kicks off. The legal tampering period begins Monday. So all that fun stuff as well. And we'll have you covered right here on the show. Throw all your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat. We will be sure to get to those. Thank you all for spending your Wednesday evening with us and joining me today here on the show. Friend of the pod. You all know him from the New York Daily News, Jets beat writer Antwan Staley kind of give us some of his time. Antwan, combines in the books. We got free agency, the draft, so much to talk about, man. And it's going to be a fun offseason coverage-wise, and to be a fan of this team as well because of all the cap space that this team has, all the moves that they can make. We've already seen a couple dominoes fall. Jermaine Johnson traded to the Tennessee Titans. Breece Hall, the Jets ultimately placed the franchise tag on him. A lot to talk about, my friend. How you doing?
I'm all right. How you doing, Connor?
Doing well. It's great to be back with you. And we've kind of spoke about the Jermaine Johnson trade here on the show several times. Didn't do a pod yesterday, so I kind of just want to get your thoughts briefly on the Breece Hall move. Darren Muji made it clear at the Combine that Breece wasn't going anywhere. The Jets and Breece's camp were in contract talks seemingly from before the Combine up until yesterday at the tag deadline when they ultimately placed the franchise tag on him. Now, this kind of feels, Antwan, like somewhat of a placeholder if the Jets are close on a deal. They needed to place it on him because yesterday was the deadline and it could have kind of opened up a whole new door of mayhem. If they didn't place it on him, the deadline had passed and they still didn't have a long-term deal. Now this tag kind of is placeholder, $14.5 million for this upcoming season. But keep this in mind, folks. The Jets could still negotiate a long-term deal with Hall up until July 15th. So how do you view the decision, Antwan, to place the franchise tag, most notably over the transition tag that was set at $11.5 million?
Well, I mean, I think it was a no-brainer, just simply when you think about it, because I mean, if you place the transition tag on him, then that opens him up, for him possibly leaving. And also, I think one thing that people have been kind of, don't necessarily understand is that if you place the transition tag on a player and that player leaves, you don't get any compensation for him.
Yep.
Not even get potentiatory pick. So that way, I mean, extra $3 million is not really a big deal to make sure that you keep Breece Hall under control at least for another year. And, also, I mean, there would have been a lot of suitors for him. I mean, we already kind of saw that at the trade deadline last year where you had the team like the Kansas City Chiefs and other teams calling just buying for Breece Hall's services. So especially in a robust running back market where you have guys like Kenneth Walker III and also Travis Etienne, I think Breece Hall would have commanded a number similar to what the franchise tag number is anyway. And you just be able to keep him for a year. If you can't work anything out, ultimately, at least you have him for 26, and then you can reevaluate the running back position after next year. So, yeah, I didn't really think it was a big deal there. I know it's been some talk about people have talked about whether, the Breece Hall has been a loser and all this, but you're getting paid $14.3 million for a year. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a loser. Breece Hall is a loser in that regard. So, I think he'll be fine. And, even if it's next year, like he'll still have a robust market once he does hit free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of talk of, well, how long is Brees Hall going to be able to be a successful back in this league? And I think his season last year, Antwan, kind of silenced those doubts because after 2024, there were a lot of questions, and rightfully so. Ball security was an issue. He just didn't have that same explosiveness that we saw in years prior before he kind of underwent those nagging knee issues after the ACL. So there were a lot of questions regarding him and his future with the Jets after 2024. And I think this past season, he kind of put those questions to doubt. Over nearly 400 receiving yards, was someone who was just really dynamic all around. And the only mainstay, I think that's the way I've described it, within this Jets offense. He was the only
Well, yeah,
playmaker who can make plays for this team whenever and wherever. Garrett Wilson only played in 7 games and
yeah,
was
he
shut
has hurt
down.
10 games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the middle of October. So Brees was the only guy who was kind of able to come in and steady this offense, and you could rely on him for big plays. And he still showed us that he has that home run ability. He still has that explosive first step, and he's able to make big plays, which I think separates him from some of the other running backs in this league. The talk of where does he rank among running backs? Is he top 5? Is he top 10? That's a whole nother conversation. But all that matters is that the Jets are keeping Brees Hall, and frankly, Antwan, letting him go would have created an additional need on this Jets roster when this team already has a flurry of them, and that's something that they needed to void, and they did just that by tagging him, and they're kind of using that again as a placeholder moving forward. He will be on this team regardless in 2026. Now, someone who may not be on this team as of now and most likely isn't is the quarterback for the 2026 season, Antwan. So many different routes that the Jets could go. They're going to exhaust all options. That's what Darren Mushi said at the end of season presser, combine, when asked about the situation. Really not much. Nobody knows what the Jets are going to do with quarterback, frankly. And again, the amount of ammunition they have allows them to kind of take any route that they really want to, finding their QB for this upcoming season. And a name that has been circled by Jet fans because he's kind of a bigger fish if he were to get released, and a big name within the division is Tua Tagovailoa. And earlier today, Good Morning Football, NFL Network's Mike Garafolo says the Jets are doing their homework on Tagovailoa. Antwan, obviously, Tua is still with the Dolphins, but there's a lot that could happen. Not only could he be on the trade market, but he could potentially be released. He's on a crazy deal right now with the Dolphins that it would be very, very hard for them to move. And he was benched in the middle of last season for a 6th-round rookie in Quinn Ewers. His future there under a new regime remains entirely unknown. If Tua Tagovailoa shakes loose, does he make sense to be the Jets' bridge quarterback in 2026?
I don't think so. I think he has, just I don't know if his arm is strong enough to play in, a stadium in MetLife Stadium where the wind is a bit of an issue. Now, he did play well again in December in the game against the Jets too, but obviously the Jets were in a much different place, and there was a lot of injuries and things like that, a lot of variables that we could talk about there. But ultimately, like, I just don't know if it's the right fit. Especially considering you have Frank right there. It was some questions whether a guy like Bryce Young was even the right fit. He's a smaller guy, and then Tua maybe like 2 inches taller than him, maybe. So, and also in addition to just some of the injury concerns and, obviously the interceptions, I think were a bit of a red flag for me too, as well. So I would stay away from that. But it also depends on what happens. Like if he gets released, then yeah, maybe, I think it'd be, of course, it, makes sense for the Dolphins to do their homework. We're talking about a guy that's a Pro Bowl type of talent, in the past too, as well. Obviously didn't have the season, hasn't had the last 2 seasons haven't been really as good as well. So it's always, you look at the whole quarterback market in general, it's going to be guys that's, it's always some red flags there, some, concerns with every single guy, one of these guys. So they have to do their due diligence, but I don't see it as a fit, personally. But, I think Tua should probably go somewhere like Minnesota if that becomes an option too. Obviously, I know a lot of people are going to want to go to Minnesota, Kyler Murray too as well. But I feel like that's more of a fit there competing with J.J. McCarthy as opposed to, the Jets situation.
Well said. It's kind of a similar argument that I've compiled with Derek Carr because he's a name that has emerged in recent weeks because he's made some nice comments about the Jets, and obviously the rumors of him coming out of retirement, and the Jets are going to be linked to every quarterback who is involved in trade conversation, who's going to be on the free agent market this offseason. But they're very, very similar in the way that Tua Tagovailoa, the injury concerns, number one, it's hard to get past that. And something that I keep coming back to, and look, this might sound a little old school or cliche in a way, I just don't think you can justify bringing Tagovailoa to a cold weather city. This is someone who's 0-6 when the kickoff temperature is below 40 degrees, 4-14 when it's below 55. Now, Antwan, not only do the Jets have to play in a handful of cold weather games in northern New Jersey every year, but they also take a trip up to New England. They also take a trip up to Buffalo each season. Those games add up. I just think it's hard to look at his track record in cold weather, his injury history, and say this guy is a perfect fit with the Jets. But at the same time, it makes sense in the way, and I can understand why people are out there saying, okay, maybe it wouldn't be the worst option because, like you said, Antwan, if he were to be released, it would be on a cheaper deal. He'd be cost effective, which is important for the Jets, number one. And number two, he's at least shown you something. He's able to win games. That's something you can't say about an option like Tyson Bagent. Just that's I keep hearing.
McKee,
yeah, exactly. Davis Mills even is a name that has been.
Well, Davis has started. Like he started a couple years, so yeah, he has more of a body of work.
He has more of a body of work, right? But he hasn't really proven much as it pertains to winning. At least you could look back to Tua and say similar argument with Kyler. This is someone who has brought a team to the playoffs, who has at least shown you something, is a dynamic of enough athlete to have some success. Whereas the McKees, the Bagents, not much to point to. Davis Mills, not much of a really promising track record to look at when you talk about him before his backup role with the Texans.
I will say this, too. Like, he played on some really bad Texans team. So you have to kind of keep it in mind, too, as well.
Oh, yeah. Lovey Smith.
This was before T.J. Stroud, too. So you have to, provide context behind that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But the point, the overarching point being that the guys like Tua Tagovailoa, the guys like Kyler Murray are gradually going to stick out because they've accomplished something in the NFL, whereas there's a large free agent pool of all these different names of guys the Jets could go after. And in large part, they're uninspiring. The news came out today. It was a report Jacoby Brissett could go for a day 3 pick in Arizona. They'd be willing to deal him for something like that, which I think is crazy because they just let go of Kyler Murray and they're completely going to rebuild their quarterback.
I think that's the best option, honestly. If you look at all the options, and I agree with you. I have no idea why they would let somebody like that out the building, considering, the quarterback class you have in 27. Like, why did just keep them for a year? You can add another veteran if you want to, but just keep them for a year and then see what happens. And then if it doesn't work out, then you can just, wash your hands clean with them and then draft whoever you want to next year. So I don't understand. Like, I guess people want their own guy and want people to know the system maybe before want somebody like, somebody different. I know a lot of people talked about Jimmy Garoppolo being an option there. I can't necessarily understand that unless you're bringing him in to be a backup. I wouldn't bring him in to be a starter at this point, but that's been the talk around there that, it seems like Garoppolo and, the Cardinals are kind of linked to one another with LaFleur there.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it the day that the Jets hired Frank Reich. Antwan Brissett makes a lot of sense because he fits the mold of what Reich looks for, and hell, he's had success under Reich before. And beyond that, this is someone who's a seasoned veteran, but I don't think it's necessarily someone who was just at the back end of his career and kind of just be a put-in. I mean, the guy put up legitimate passing volume last season, and I think he only won one game throughout his 10, 11 starts or whatever it was in Arizona. But he was far from the issue. Again, he was consistent for that team. He was putting out the passing output behind an offensive line as a veteran too, which is crazy because Jacoby Brissett isn't like a crazy athletic player. He's not like a Tyrod Taylor or anything like that. And he was playing behind a really, really bad offensive line in Arizona that was dealing with injury after injury after injury. So I was saying Brissett for a while, but then I started to doubt, well, if they're going to get rid of Kyler Murray, why would they settle for anything less than a day 2 pick for Jacoby Brissett? But now Arizona seems to be taking a completely different route, and I think the Jets should certainly be interested in him.
Another name, too, I would say throw out there, too. You talk about links to Frank Reich. Andy Dalton is also a link to Frank Reich, too, as well. Obviously, those two being together in Carolina. So that's also another name you can probably pay attention to as well.
You could even say potentially Carson Wentz on the free agent market, although I don't know what after that injury that he suffered with Minnesota last season, what his future looks like, but he was somewhat competent his last year in Minnesota before that injury, and then played under Reich in Philadelphia, and then played under him in Indianapolis as well. So you have that dual connection there.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen too. I think should be smart. The Jets should be smart about this too as well. Add two veterans, and then you can draft somebody, whether it be the fourth round or whatever. What you want to throw darts at, like Drew
Mhm.
Aller or Garrett Nussmeier, who might be on the board too. Other guys as well, and surround that rookie with two veterans. Sort of what the Giants did with Jackson Dart last year, where they also had Russell Wilson in addition to
Yeah.
Jameis Winston. I think that'd be a smart move if you want to go that route, especially if you bring in a guy like Carson Wentz, who does has experience, but you don't necessarily want him starting games unless you have to.
Yeah, I'll ask you this, Antwan. What do they do with Tyrod Taylor? Because he seems to potentially be a guy who could be a veteran already in this room, and maybe you sign Brissett and keep Tyrod and draft a rookie. Like we haven't heard much on the Taylor front. Granted, free agency is still a little less than a week away, but what do they do with him?
Well, I think they could just wait and see what happens as far as the veteran route to see if they, sign somebody else. But ultimately, I think they're going to look elsewhere, at least initially, just some of the guys that are out there. And then with Taylor, like they can always circle back and see, if there's some interest there later on. But we're talking about a guy that's always had injury concerns, and then he's getting older too
Yeah.
as well. I think Tyrod will be 37 this upcoming year,
Hmm.
so I think you really want somebody that's a little bit younger for the position. And even last year, Tyrod had injury concerns. Just that's the reason they didn't bench Justin Fields earlier in the years, like
Yeah.
for the Cincinnati game. So yeah, I think you want to have people that are available, and Tyrod Taylor has shown the propensity to not be available.
Is there any chance that he retires? Like I kind of talked about this over the past couple years. This year most notably because he got a chance. He didn't play at all. He didn't start a game in 2024. He came in and mop up duty a few games, but didn't start a game in 2024 after making
Oh, I
like
thought either. Oh, no, that's not true. Actually, well, not in 24 and 25, he did start a couple of games in 25.
not in 2024. He
Oh,
started a few
24.
games.
Okay, 24.
Yeah, my
Yes,
point is he
that is
didn't start
correct.
a few games and he didn't start any games in 2025. So it was kind of like, okay, that's interesting. And then this past year, again, he started a few games, looked competent, and then got hit with injuries. Like, when does he retire? Because he's getting up there in age. He's what, 20, 30, turning 37, like you said. Could he be someone who like stuns the NFL and retires this offseason? Would that even be that stunning?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people. I don't think it'd be stunning, but I think a lot of people, especially as you get older, you look at the interest out there. The NFL will tell you whether they're interested or not. Like whether he may not want to retire, but ultimately, if teams are not interested, then he ultimately might end up being retired. So, like, I don't think he'll retire in this initially because he'll probably see what kind of
Yeah.
interest will be out there. But if it comes like June or July, he's not signed with a team, then maybe potentially I could see that happening.
David chimes in the chat. He's asking about Teddy Bridgewater. Antoine cites that he has a history with AG from both the Saints and the Lions. Another guy, though, and I thank you for the chat, David. And I think that's a good connection that you make there. But how much longer can he play? Like, he was a high school coach for a season, then that whole thing happened with him getting suspended, the issue with the kids over there, and then signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think you can go into a season and rely on him as your week one starter.
No, I think if you bring him in, he's your second veteran that you bring in to complement kind of what I was saying with the rookie and also
Yeah.
another veteran too. I don't think you're bringing him in to start week one. You're bringing him in just in case injury were to occur and that rookie, whoever it is not ready. So he's your from backup at least going into the season.
And shout out to you, David. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships, my friend. Means a lot. Thank you so much for your continued support right here on the channel. Antoine, I know we got a couple more minutes left with you, so I just kind of want to rattle through a couple more names at quarterback. Then I want to talk draft in the closing segment. Tyson Bagent, he's a really intriguing name who has kind of picked up steam in recent weeks because Ryan Poles at the NFL Scouting Combine told reporters that they've been receiving calls on Bagent and teams are interested. And then obviously the Combine is when all the media, the league personnel, all that, they get together and they're kind of putting the pieces together, gauging interest in a way. So what does Bagent's not market look like per se, but what does his future look like? Because this is someone who signed a 2-year extension with the Bears ahead of last season. So he'd come at an affordable price. His cap hit with the Jets would be under $5 million if they were to acquire him this upcoming season. What does the future hold for Tyson Bagent?
I mean, look at all the quarterback needy teams out there. Not just talking about the Jets in general, but we talked about the Vikings. Look, the Falcons, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Mhm.
The Dolphins, assuming that they let go of Tua, that'll be another place too. We talked about the
Browns
Cardinals
even,
as
yeah.
well. The Browns, yeah, the Browns are definitely, they need a quarterback too. Although I don't know what they're going to do, especially with, Watson being available to play now, in addition to, Sanders and also Dylan Gabriel. So they have a lot of quarterbacks. They just don't have a lot of good quarter. They don't have any
Yeah.
good quarterbacks. They like
Yeah, exactly.
so, but yeah, it's a lot of needy queens. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see somebody like that move on too, especially considering the contract is affordable too, and a lot of teams are kind of cap strapped at the moment. The Jets aren't one of those, but a lot of teams need quarterback help, and there's not nearly enough quarterbacks to go around in this draft. So you're going to see. I think you're going to see teams that try to grasp for straws and try to go after guys like Davis Mills and Bajan, and we talked about Brissett there too as well. Kirk Cousins will be on the market too as well. So yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see where these dominoes start to fall and which one is gonna hit first.
Well, Antoine, they're not cap strapped. I thought that was interesting because the Jets have a ton of cap space, right? They're fourth in the league.
No,
But I
no, I
think
was saying teams, not the Jets were cap strapped, but other teams
okay.
around the league are cap
Okay.
strapped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
and
no,
just to
no.
make that clear.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wanted to circle that because, yeah, the Jets have a ton of cap space. But I think an important distinction that is important for fans to keep in mind as free agency gets underway and the trade talks are going to continue to heat up. And we're going to hear a ton of names linked to the Jets at quarterback. Sure, the Jets have a lot of cap room, but I think fans also need to keep in mind this team needs to fill a ton of holes on the free agent market. They need to find multiple quality starters across their depth chart at multiple positions. And I'll add this at quarterback. The Jets already owe $35 million to Aaron Rodgers this upcoming offseason, his dead cap hit after cutting him with a post-June 1 designation last year. And assuming they cut bait with Justin Fields, the Jets will owe an additional $22 million to him. So you're already dishing out $57 million to quarterbacks who are not going to be on your roster. How much do you want to give to someone who, let's be honest, is nothing more than a bridge option, even if it's a Tua, even if it's a Kyler Murray? If you're rolling the dice in that way, how much money are you really going to want to give to a quarterback? Because again, the Jets don't have cap issues this offseason. They have over $70 million. They're comfortable. But I circle the Tyson Bajents, and we keep hearing the Tanner McKees and guys like that. And Mac Jones, the name that's kind of cooled off in recent weeks. But I talk about those guys and Brissett most notably, not only for the right connection, but also because these are cost-effective options, guys who can win you games but also don't come at the price of if the Jets were to try to trade for a Tua. And it's not the same situation with Kyler now that he's cut, but you get my drift. I think it's
And
important to find
also,
a
also
cost-effective
you
guy.
can get out of if they decide to a deal next year, you can get out of it. That's basically what it
Yep.
is. Like you have that flexibility. Just sort of with the Justin Fields provides. Like
Mm-hmm.
although sure it's kind of like kicking the can down the road because some of that money, if you do a June designation, first designation is going to carry over to the next year. But the Jets have enough cap room where it shouldn't hurt them too much in the grand scheme of things. It's just the dead cap looks bad, especially considering obviously the Aaron Rodgers situation and carrying that over to this year, and then obviously Justin Fields as well.
Antoine, thank you for the time, man. Appreciate it. You got any final thoughts, draft related? Want to close with that quickly. You got anything you want to touch on? What is the debate like at number 2 now after the combine where Ruben T-Rex arm Bain measured in with sub 31-inch arms? Is he out of the conversation at number 2?
I think he's out of the conversation, not because of the arms. I just think that, you're looking at guys like Reese and also Bailey. I think, especially considered probably a better fit for what the Jets defensive
Yeah.
hybrid scheme is going to be. Not to say that Ruben Bain couldn't do it, but I just think those guys like fit better, from a schematic standpoint. Whereas I think ultimately, I've been saying this, I think Ruben Bain is probably like a 3 technique in the league, the 3 defensive tackles. So like, I think, but he can play anywhere on the line. Like he can line up anywhere. I think somewhere like Tennessee would make more sense for Ruben Bain, especially with Robert Saleh there. And I think Saleh will be able to unleash and use him sort of in a way kind of like, he used John Franklin Myers with the Jets too when he was here. So I could definitely see something like that happening.
Yeah, and the issue, Antoine, aside from the arms, is I think the Miami had him measured in at 6'4" and 270 pounds. He measured in at 6'2" at the NFL Combine, and standing at 6'2", 263 pounds. I don't think he could be that slow. I think that's the issue, right? Because when you turn on the tape, he's not overly explosive. He's someone who wins with technique, and he has the production that you could
And he's
point to multiple
relentless.
years. He's
Yeah.
relentless at Miami. He's super powerful, right? But being 6'2", 263, I think you got to be a little faster. Whereas at 6'4", 270, you have the excuse for just being overly powerful, relentless, like you said. Whereas 6'2", 263, it's kind of a different conversation. And him, Reese and Bailey, they're very, very different players, right? Because when you watch Ruben Bain, you see the consistent power and what he's able to do. Whereas Reese doesn't have as much production. Not only does he have the traits that jump off the chart as well, but I think when I turn on the Arvell Reese film, I just see a ton of the short area quickness is really what catches my eye, and how quick he is. And look, there are a lot of good defensive players in this year's draft. Caleb Downs, I think, has the best instincts of a safety that I've ever watched coming out of the draft. That
Sonny Styles is also
yeah.
there too as well. So somebody that's probably as consistent as anybody in this draft too. As far, I think it's a tackle. I think he's a future tackle machine. I think he's going to have like 150, 160 tackles each year, and like you're just going to plug him in for 12 years, and he's going to make like 3 or 4 All-Pro teams.
Yeah, and look, that's the conversation that the Jets want to have. Do they want to take a linebacker at number 2? Because that would catch a ton of eyes. That would not be as crazy as taking a safety, but still wouldn't be necessarily optimizing positional
I'll say
value.
this, like, about that. Like, if somebody told, like, they're comparing Sonny Styles to kind of Luke Kuechly a little bit. Like, if somebody told me I had a chance to draft Luke Kuechly at number 2, or somebody that was like that, I would take that every time.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's gonna be interesting to watch. Look, Downs is a player that I really like. Positional value aside, he is my number 1 player in this year's draft. He's just such a good player, and I think limiting him to just a safety is kind of underselling what he did. The guy moved all over the secondary.
Yeah, he was in the box.
Corner.
Like, he can cover. Like, he can do everything. Like, he is the ultimate chess piece on there. Like, I think, a guy like Reese is also very similar to that too as well, where you can be an off-ball linebacker, but you can also bring him up and also rush the passer too. Like, I have Downs probably second, as far as the best play. I have Jeremiah Love number 1, but you can just split hairs too, because all of those guys are like tremendously really good. It just depends on how your flavor is.
Yeah, most definitely. And like the issue that a lot of people, there are certainly issues with the Jets taking Caleb Downs aside from the play. I think the biggest thing that stands out is how much money he'd be getting. The amount of money that is dished out now to the number 2 overall pick is crazy. Do you want to give a safety $50 million guaranteed, a defensive back $50 million guaranteed? I think it is. That's the signing bonus. That's the question. But if you tell me that he's Ed Reed, I'm going to do it, because that's
Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, I'll take Kyle Hamilton too.
Exactly. Like, we saw it firsthand this year, Antwan, with Nicky Manwari with the Seahawks. Look, safety is not the most valuable position. Look, I'd rather have a stud edge rusher for 10 years than I would a really, really good safety for a decade. But at the same time, he's the type of player that could turn a Jets defense from being good into one of the best in the league. I just think he has the capability to come in the league right away, be one of the top safeties, and be a ball hawker. Just the instincts that he plays with, can get downhill, can play the run. Do it all chess piece, the way you described.
I'll say that, I don't know if the Chiefs are looking to move up possibly for a guy like Jeremiah Love, but they have 2 first-round picks. So if they want to, if I'm the Jets, I might make a call, say, hey, you interested in moving up for number 2, just in case you want to get him ahead of Arizona or some of these other teams. And then that way, maybe you can accumulate a 3rd-round pick, something the Jets currently do not have.
And then if you slide back and someone like Caleb Downs is still sitting there, then that kind of softens the debate, or even someone like Sonny Styles. But I don't know. I don't know how far the Jets would want to slide back. And the trade back talks are going to heat up in a few weeks when all the draft rumors start to swirl again after free agency. And we see what teams start to do. But I feel like the Chiefs are a sound team to fill that void for what you mentioned with Jeremiah Love. But at the same time, that's the default for a lot of fans. I've heard it in a recent weeks. Oh, the Jets should just trade back with who? I don't know. There has to be a player.
Exactly. It has to be, you have to, it takes 2. It takes 2 to trade back. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm just saying, like, I don't know who they might be interested in. Like, they have 2 first-round picks. Maybe they're not interested in moving up. But if you have a chance to get those 2 first-round picks at, 9 and, whatever the Rams were, 28, 29, like, I would be interested in that. The Jets had 3 first-round picks in 22, and that translated to Sauce Garrett and obviously Jermaine Johnson. And then they were able to get Brees back at 35, too, in the 2nd round. So I actually think that was like a bit of a home run type of draft for them. And I think that's kind of what they need in this particular draft, considering all the holes that they have.
Well said, Antwan. Thank you for the time, man. You got any final thoughts before we let you go? Football related, non-football related things.
People can find me Antwan Staley on social media too as well. Just check out my work coming up. Head of free agency on NY Daily News.
Hell yeah. Thank you for the time, Antwan. Everyone, thank you guys for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe. That'll do it for us. For Antwan Staley, I'm Connor Long right here on NY Flight Jets Talk, saying have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And as always, JTS, baby. Jets, Jets, Jets. Peace.